Well, welcome guys, thanks for checking out this video. We're going to be looking into the X88 Pro Android TV box. Now, I actually did a video in the past regarding the T96. It had a 1.5 gigahertz processor and 2 gigabytes of RAM. And I did that video because I had some comments in my previous videos about the Mega Drive Mini and the PlayStation Classic, and they were saying, why not just get an Android TV box? So I enjoyed making that video, and they did actually emulate to PlayStation 1 pretty nicely. So I thought the next step up now is to see what these newer Android TV boxes can deliver with higher specs. So this is one I actually picked up. There's a couple of these around. There's actually a lot of Android TV boxes, but this one delivers with some decent specs and trying to keep that price range down. So now let's just head into an unboxing and give you more details, and I'll also show you some gameplay of all the other emulators. I won't dwell into the older generations because it actually covers up to Mega Drive, Mega CD and PlayStation 1 pretty fine, but I wanted to try and push this and see what we can actually get out of this box. Oh yeah, before I forget, because I always do, I'm not actually sponsored by this video. I bought this out of my own pocket just to help you guys, and if you like this type of content, I also do cover videos on newer games coming to older consoles. So it will really help me a lot on this channel by just easily clicking that subscribe button to keep up to date with these newer games and these Android boxes. Oh yeah, and press the like and hit the bell button if you want. So let's jump in here on the unboxing. I'm sure that you've seen a fair few of these, so I'm just going to have a quick run through of what you get all together. So now we're trying to get the lid actually off. You got the specs at the bottom there indicated on the actual front end, but I'm just going to put this on the side for now and see what you actually get all together with your delivery. So let's lift this up, and you actually get a manual, so it's great for those guys who are actually new to these Android TV boxes. A quick simple guide to how to set this up. It is really simple to install, but also gives you a guide to the remote buttons as well. But there's one problem I just found out as well. I actually purchased the one with the US adapter, but it's not much of a big problem because I do have a lot of these 5 volts plugs around. No big issue there. I'm sure it might be my problem. But of course you get a HDMI cable as well, but remember with these HDMIs you won't be able to get a 4K or 8K output because of the standard actual HDMI that it delivers. And you get a universal remote. They're built pretty nice, nothing too cheap, a nice rubber texture on all the buttons, and of course you don't get any batteries with these, so remember if you got any batteries running around to get the actual remote going. But let's have a quick look now at the box itself. It's built pretty nice, much like the T96 that I've purchased and reviewed before. I'll put that in the description box as well if you want to check that one out. So it's built very nice. It's all compact solution. This is why I really like these comparing to the actual micro and classic consoles, because you get your USB ports, your SD cards, your Ethernet and your HDMI and an SB diff. So if you got any of those surround sound systems, you can also get these set up with one of those. Now the specs of this actual box altogether, I'll just pop up there, is Android 11. It's packing a quad core 64-bit with running about 1.8 gigahertz processor. It's got a selection you can choose from, a 4 gigabyte model or an 8 gigabyte model, and is running a DDR3. So a bit of a shame on the DDR3 because it could bottleneck the processor and you probably get more actual performance out of a DDR4, but with 8 gigabytes is plenty of room to play with. Of course you got that 8K actual output, but you won't be running 60 frames with that, but you will be getting a 4K 60. So you can actually buy the 4 gigabyte version, and this one actually has 64 gigabytes of memory. You can also buy the 128 gigabyte model, so that does pack a bit more on the price range. So let's give this a boot up, and I was very impressed by the boot time. Obviously it's a little bit longer than what you see, but it's a lot more responsive and quicker than what of the T96 that I covered. But the actual interface is pretty barren, it's pretty boring. I've experienced a bit better, but to be honest it does do the job pretty nicely. It's just very smooth experience and very rapid to actually load up things because of the faster processing and more RAM. But let's go ahead and see some specifications now. If you go to the options, you will now see that it actually is Android 11 with a little Easter egg when you click on the actual thing, just to show you. And let's head over to the DRM info. Now this is good guide because with the wide variety information, it does state that it is set to security level 3, which means that your Netflix or your YouTube won't be able to actually have 4K video output just because of how the software has been locked down.
So you only could be able to do that via modded applications, which is a bit of a shame as this is advertised as an 8K box, but you can always play your 8K actual media files. Now that doesn't stop it being a good emulation device, so let's open Dig, which is my favorite front end, and I did work on a customized actual front end. If anyone's interested, I am actually trying to finish this up. I'll put that in the description box below if you want to download this one yourself. So I've actually uploaded some of my ROMs already, but I'm not going to cover any of the older generations. I'm going to show you now how it plays PlayStation 1 games a bit better than that of the T95. Well, I'm hoping so anyway. So there's a lot of obviously some emulators to work with for this one. It is a 64-bit processor, so that means we can actually use some other actual applications as well. But for this one, I've been testing out the Duck Station, an actual call using RetroArch. First time I've actually used this because the T95 was a 32-bit, this is a 64-bit processor, so now I can actually use this, and I've been looking around. Apparently the actual core does run better than other cores, but the T95 runs PlayStation 1's pretty great. But the key thing with DuckStation is there's a lot more options to play with. So first thing I definitely had to look in to see if it's compatible with getting a better resolution. So in the options you can actually choose a lot of things to choose, but I'm going to go with ×2 resolution scale, and these should actually polish the games a lot better. But the moment you try to resume, it does like to hang there, and I thought, oh dear, the actual box is probably froze on me. But then bam, here we go, everything's running pretty fine. The frames are actually pretty smooth experience, and I was pretty excited. I can play all my PlayStation 1 games now with ×2 resolution on a dedicated Android box, which is pretty simple experience. But it wasn't too long after I was really enjoying this that the whole game just crashed, and that's where the actual box buckled. But there's other apps as well. So the one that is very popular is the FPSE app. You might see this already, is quite popular, but the games actually seem to just load up 16:9 natively, which is a bit annoying, but there's plenty of settings to choose from. But I did find the frames to really struggle, and not just on this game but a lot of other games, so there's a bit more of a stable experience using RetroArch. So I put that aside and I thought to try DuckStation, which is apparently one of the best apps of emulation your actual PlayStation 1 games. But the problem is you load it up and you can't seem to add game to the library, it just likes to hang there. But there's one way around this. You can actually look up on your SD card by loading up and changing disk. It doesn't seem to like it any other way, which is a bit of a problem because I was pretty excited about this app. But I managed to get a couple of games on. So we're going to boot in up Tekken 3 again to see how it runs on here. It does like to run the BIOS for a bit, and I did notice that the quality was a little bit better using DuckStation, so that's pretty nice. The actual app runs pretty fine, but it's pretty much of a fiddle to actually get going. And first thing you have to do as well is assign your controller, so that was a bit of a bother, but once you got that out of the way, it's not too bad. But the first thing I had to make sure is see if we can actually do some enhancements and ×2 that resolution. I'm trying to push this box to see how far we can do this, and the actual games seem to be running a lot better using the DuckStation app. So you can see the actual stats in the corner with the frame rate staying just about around the late 50s, and then you've got your higher resolution, so the games are running and looking a bit better. Of course the frame rates are not consistent, and it is a different experience with different games, but it's really nice to try and get a higher resolution. So there are some good results on other games, but also really bad on other ones, so it's not my best way of playing them. But now we got the PlayStation 1 out of the way, let's look at something new that this actual Android box brings, and that is emulation to the N64. Now this is one of the main reasons why I really want to invest in this box, because of the T95's lack of compatibility with most of N64 titles. I really wanted to see what this new box would actually deliver with those higher specs. So there's a lot of apps to actually choose from, but there was one big problem with this box. It wasn't really compatible with a lot of the apps, and the most popular app used in Android system is the M64 Plus app. So this is very popular, but fortunately I come across a problem straight away trying to locate my ROMs. Going to actual file locator, you go actually direct to your SD card and it won't load any games, and that was the same with the standard version as I'm showing you here, and also with the Plus. Just would not find my games. So I tried some other versions like Moving 64, just wanted to crash. and then I actually had some luck with N64MU. I managed to find my games, but the actual emulation itself, you know, the games were booting up pretty fine, which is a great experience now after all those struggles, but emulation was not that great, so I tried some other ones, and again the same experience. So I put them aside. Again, this one just didn't want to work, but finally I struck some luck with Classic Boy Gold, which is an emulator of collection of other systems as well. But finally I managed to get some N64 games running with an app that's actually working, and this actually does seem to run pretty fine with Mario 64 and other Mario games like Mario Kart. So finally this is pretty good to actually see some results going, but the emulation wasn't that great. It could be a little bit better, but I'm sure with a lot of settings and tweaking these games would run a lot more smoother, which is what you want from the original N64 games. Now, one experience what I was pretty excited about was the running the GoldenEye. This is the first time I managed to get an Android box running GoldenEye, and the game actually ran pretty fine. And check this shot out through a window, boosh. I was pretty chuffed with that one, I gotta say. So the game actually runs pretty smooth, but of course you are going to get your frame drops, and it did struggle here and there. But finally this is pretty nice to get it going, and with this app I'm sure a lot of people would know how to change settings to get a better experience. Personally, I haven't spent too much time with these emulators, but for the guys who have, I'm sure this might be the best app to use. But one of the apps that I tried later, which was actually included in the Retroid Pocket 2 that when I originally purchased that, came with an app called N64 Android. So I give this a gamble. You can actually download this on the actual Play Store itself. I had to download it from an ABK file, but the games actually are looking better than on running on the other emulator, as you can see here. And to my surprise, if you actually set the GoldenEye to widescreen mode, it does fill your screen up pretty nice, and the game does run even smoother. And I found this experience with all the other games. I've only tested about 8 games on this device, and they're actually running at a playable rate. But with some other ROMs, I'm sure there's going to be some other problems. But if this actual app can be utilized and actually be modded to run on this device, I think we'll have the best dedicated Android TV box to run N64 games. But there was one big problem. I couldn't seem to collaborate the controller to it, and I'm lacked with settings. So that was one problem. If any of you guys know how to use this N64 Android app better, let me know in the comments box below, because the games are running and looking pretty nice using this app. So let's try PSP games. Now, I'd love to try and get a dedicated device to play these on a big screen, and I was quite surprised. I only tried out a handful of games, and basically it was the same experience. I basically put on the setting on default, and I tried to put the resolution on ×2. That's where the games look pretty sharp and clear. So the gameplay itself was running a good solid 60 frames per second with a lot of these games, but when transitioned from movies to other parts of the game, there was a lot of hang time and the frame rates did drop. But playing the games were actually fine and a good experience. But it does like to add some weird behavior. For instance, another system a fair few people has been asking with the T96 box is further better emulation with the Dreamcast games, but unfortunately with this app I seem to not manage to get any decent games running. I did manage to get some luck with RetroArch, but the games seem to crash, so I would like to try and test this even further and give you more results in the comment box below to give you an update. Now, comparing this to the T96 box packing a 1.5 GHz and 2 GB of RAM, now with extra power, Android based games do actually run a lot better, and even heavier 3D games are more compatible using Android 11 actual software. So I was pretty excited. Now I could test some more heavy 3D based games, and other 2D based games with like more heavier backgrounds do run a lot better and more compatible with this device. If you guys haven't tried Ultima, I do recommend it. This game was pretty fun. It's the first time me having it. I got pretty addicted to it straight away. It does remind me of Rayman, Legends and things like that. It must be by the same directors. But anyway, this is a pretty awesome game. Another thing I wanted to test out is this Octopus app, which is a controller overlay that you can feature on games, because there's obviously a lot of games for Android that only use touchscreen. So with this app, you can actually put a controller on front of it by just placing the actual buttons onto the actual screen button layouts. So this is the first time of me testing this out. I was pretty scared if this wasn't actually going to work and all, but to my surprise, after a lot of fiddling and some other customization, basically you can finally get the Octopus app to run on these games. And for instance, a lot of more heavy 3D based games do run a lot better. So with Octopus, you can finally get a controller on a dedicated Android box. So this was a pretty fun experience, and games seem to run pretty well because it has that extra 8 gigabytes of RAM. And the last thing I just want to test and show you guys is the Drastic app. I did show that with the T96 box and it ran really well, but that was with no extra enhancements and features. But now we can actually enable the enhanced 3D mode, so now this game actually looks more playable on my big screen. Without this enhancement, it does look very pixelated, but now this game looks really well. I did not start that great then, but now this game runs in a solid 60 frames per second than that the actual T96 box could not do. So I was pretty let down by this box ultimately, because I couldn't get any really decent N64 emulation, but I think there's a promise if people do get behind and try and customize that app to run on this device, or even if there are some updates. But to be honest, these updates for these devices do come very sparse, because they're not really there's not a dedicated team to these, but hopefully there may be some teams out there that could deliver and get us some decent N64 emulation with this app. It is definitely capable of doing so with the actual processor and RAM. You can see it now running with the N64 OID, but unfortunately it does need some more tweaking. So hopefully somewhere down the road we can actually get some decent emulation for the other devices.
Well guys, I hope this video has actually helped you to understand what these newer Android boxes can deliver. It's a bit of a shame really. I was expecting a bit more support with the N64 and the Dreamcast, so I think a lot of you guys have been asking, but if there actually are a good team behind this and actually getting those apps to work properly, perhaps we get some better results in the future. But of course we have to try out some other Android boxes because the compatibility will change with these devices. But with the newer chips and the higher RAM, we will be getting some better specs and some better emulation. And of course, before I end the video, I am more of a fan of collecting the actual original discs and hardware, because I'm more of a retro gaming collector. But the actual benefits that you do get with these dedicated boxes, you can just use those, import the games that have never been fan translated, and those expensive games are just too hard to get your hands on. So I'm really excited about what the future will bring with these boxes. And as always, if you like this video, hit that button. If you want to help and support, click subscribe, leave your comments below, and I catch you lot on the next video.